Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers, and this is my first run review of the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Let's take a look. Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 costs £210 or $250. It weighs 222 grams or 7.8 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 4mm. The Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 is a performance shoe designed for runners aiming for faster times over long distance events. The latest version has been modified to be even better for endurance events due to a wider landing platform and the addition of the brand's soft and bouncy nitrogen-infused Mizuno Energy XP midsole foam. Mizuno states that the shoe is aimed at runners looking for a sub 2.5 hour marathon time thanks to the combination of the new midsole foam along with a smooth speed assist geometry for optimum gait and efficiency and a carbon-infused Mizuno Wave plate to provide a high level of energy return. The shoe also features a breathable mesh upper and a G3 outsole designed to be lightweight but provide a good amount of grip on road surfaces. Although the stack height of the shoe is measured from the heel to the forefoot, there is a much thicker stack of the midsole foam in the middle of the shoe. So the fit for me in the Wave Rebellion Pro 3, I'm size 8 in the UK. This is a race shoe, it's a performance shoe, it's designed for speed, it's designed to be as light as it possibly can, and as a result that generally means that you have quite a lean fit on the top. That is the case with this shoe. It's quite a lean shoe. There's not a lot of space for me in my size 8 in the forefoot of the shoe. There's a fair bit of space around the toe box, no issues there, but on the midsection of the shoe it is quite thin. For me, I didn't have any issues with it. I found it very comfortable on that first run, but I think if you do have wider feet or you may be a little bit over your size for your feet, so I'm a size pretty average size 8 shoe. If you're sort of going over the size 8 a bit, you're going to notice that. The other thing about this shoe is that it's very much like a high heel shoe. When you're running in it, it's pushing you forward a bit, and I do find that my foot goes further down the shoe than it would in a lot of other shoes, and as a result you probably are getting closer to the toe section at the end of the shoe. For me, I in that first run I didn't have a problem, but there's not a lot of play room in there, so I might suggest going up half a size in this shoe just to get a little bit of extra space in there, but I'll find out more during the full review. But for on that first run it was fine, but I think you may need a little bit more space in that forefoot of the shoe. Okay, so the first run I did in the shoe was a fartlek interval session. I went out and I did about 11k, and I just tried lots of different paces out for about 1 kilometer, and that varied quite a bit between really slow paces for me, which is about 5:30-minute kilometers, and taking it up to about 4:15, which is about my marathon pace. I didn't go any faster than that because it's between Christmas and New Year, and I struggled to find the motivation to run really fast on that first run. But what I found on that run is that this is a really interesting shoe. It has this new Mizuno Energy XP midsole foam, which is bouncier than the previous version of the shoe. I was a really big fan of the early version of the shoe, the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. I thought it was an incredibly fun shoe, but it wasn't a shoe that I ever picked up. I never used it for a marathon because I was a little bit wary of the lack of stability in that shoe, and the fact that it was quite aggressive in how it made you run. So when I run a marathon, I really want a natural feel. I like energy return, I like bounce, I like a nice bit of softness, but I want the ride to feel relatively natural and comfortable, because in those later stages in a very aggressive shoe it can be quite hard. And in the Saucony Endorphin Elite, which is a very aggressive shoe, I only went up to half marathon in that shoe, and by the end of the half marathon I did find it very, very uncomfortable. There is no way I could have run a marathon in the Saucony Endorphin Elite. Now, the new version of the Wave Rebellion Pro, the Wave Rebellion Pro 3, it's very similar to the previous version, but it does have this new midsole foam in it, the Mizuno Energy XP, which is a little bit softer, a little bit more energy return in it, and it feels a little bit denser as well, so that's where that energy return is coming from. It's really compressing and giving you a lot of that energy back, and you really notice that as soon as you step out the front door in the shoe, it feels bouncy straight away. one of the things I think that's changed with this shoe is that one of the main things that's definitely changed is that it has a much wider base on it. So you'll see that the older version of the shoe has a very different outsole to it. You have this big cutout section across the full length of the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. You don't have that on the Pro 3. You've just got a section at the back. And the front section of the shoe is also wider, so it gives you this wider base to land on. The other thing as well, I think, is that this heel section, you have this cutout section of the heel, that seems to have moved back a little bit in this shoe. So previously when I ran in the version 2, I'm a midfoot striker, and I was hitting this sort of pointy section, or the section where the shoe, basically the fulcrum of the shoe, where you land on it and you move forward. I was hitting it dead on, and it was really bouncy, but I wasn't really getting loads from it. It was a fun shoe to run in, and it definitely a shoe that made you run in a certain way. But that shoe, unless I was running really fast, it wasn't really tipping me forward. It was sort of making me bounce. If I was running fast, I was tipping over a bit more, and it was working really well for that. This shoe is designed more for longer distance runners, apparently. And I think part of that is to do with the fact that they've moved this sort of fulcrum area further back. So as a result, when you land on it, it sort of tips you forward a lot more. It's more noticeable in this shoe than it was in the previous version of the shoe. So it really is quite aggressive in how it moves you forward. When you're running at a slower pace, you get a nice bit of that bounce, and it rolls you forward nicely. So when I'm running at my marathon pace at about 4:15, I can really feel it tipping me forward. It's quite hard to run slowly in this shoe because it's tipping you forward all the time. When I started the run, I was left the house and I was just planning on jogging to the place where I normally go and do my interval sessions, and I was just getting down to about 4:40 without even trying, and normally I'd probably do it about 5:20 up to where I start doing my interval sessions. And I think that's because of this geometry of the shoe. It's really sort of rocks you forward and lands you on that front section and bounces you forward. It really does make a big difference. So it's definitely a shoe that gives you a little bit more in that rocker format than the previous version of the shoe did, which is a welcome change to the shoe, because the funness of the previous version of the shoe didn't work quite well for me when I was running longer distances at pace, whereas I think this shoe, that's the focus of it. It is noticeably a little bit aggressive, so for some people that's probably not going to be what you're looking for, but if the Mizuno talk about it being a shoe designed for people who want sub 2.5 hour marathons, so it is a shoe designed for elites. It's not necessarily a shoe you're going to pick up and go and run a 30-minute park run in it, because it's quite a shoe that's not really designed for that. It's very much designed for hitting those faster paces and maintaining that pace as you go along. But for me, at that 4:15 mark, which is my marathon pace, it felt really, really good. The other thing I'll say about this shoe as well is the front section of it, which is that wider base, it is noticeable. So when you land on that, it does feel a little bit more stable on the front of the shoe. But the back section of the shoe definitely isn't very stable. Overall, the shoe isn't, even though they've tried to make it a bit more stable, it's not a very stable shoe, and it's definitely a shoe that you have to keep an eye on the ground with if you're not running on completely flat roads. So where I run, the terrain changes a bit. I do a little bit around parks and things like that, and I really have to pay attention to it, because even though if you landed on the front section of the shoe, you might be all right, but not many people do that. And I land sort of on this rear section, and it is a bit wobbly. It's by no means a stable shoe at the back. So it's definitely a shoe that, despite them trying to make it more stable, it is not a very stable shoe. But what I would say over that first run is that it's fun. It definitely changes the ride from the previous version of the shoe and really pops you forward a lot more than you would expect. And I definitely think it's probably going to be better for longer distance sessions because of that more aggressive tendency to pop you forward at those marathon paces, and I might even use this for Manchester coming up, maybe Dubai in a couple of weeks, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do the marathon distance at that yet. So yeah, first run in this, very, very much enjoyed it. I think it's an improvement on the previous version. I like some of the changes that have been made in this shoe, and I definitely think it's more conducive to longer distance training, which is what it's meant to be better at. But I've still got a lot of testing to do in it and see if it's a shoe that I would actually pick for a marathon. So my early verdict on the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3, Some interesting changes to the shoe. I think it's changed the experience of the shoe. I think it's definitely something that is more conducive to running those longer distances, pushing you into a position where you're moving forward at those paces without really picking up the pace and going really fast. Previously, the first two versions of the shoe I really liked for 5k, 10k. But I wouldn't have used them for a full marathon just because I didn't get the sort of roll through that I want from it. I did use the 2s for a half marathon, found it very fun, but I did find it to be a little bit of an awkward shoe to wear for that longer distance. It didn't really help me in the latter stages because it was bouncing me, but it wasn't really rolling me forward. I think this shoe is trying to fix that and roll you forward in throughout the whole course of a marathon or a half marathon, so that it's giving you that optimized efficiency as you're running, but it is quite aggressive. So I will do some longer distances in the shoe and see how it feels, because I don't necessarily like an aggressive shoe when I'm running longer distances. I like a natural feeling shoe. But the changes that have been made to the shoe I think are improvements. I think that wider base is a smart move, and I also think that the foam is there's a bit more energy to it as well, but when it comes to stability, I still think it's a way off a lot of shoes out there. So if you're looking for a stable race shoe, you wouldn't get this, because it's a way off being stable at the moment, especially if you're landing in the back section of this shoe. That's it from me on this first look at the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell. And if you're going to catch and play, you can find it to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.